90s were truly a different time for the gaming world. It also wasn't expected to be all that bright, especially after the gaming industry crash in the 80s. Nintendo was dominating the market after the crisis without any competition. But everything was about to change in year 1991. No matter how you look at it, there are only a bunch of franchises that stood the test of time for more than 20 years and can still come up with AAA games. There are only two gaming icons that have revitalized the market after the 80s crash on their own. Nintendo's Italian plumber with a red shirt and a blue jumpsuit, Mario, and the one we will be talking about today, Sega's past hedgehog with an attitude, who celebrates his 25th anniversary this year, the blue blur himself, Sonic. Hey there everyone, it's me Gamerturk. This is a series I'm doing about the history of Sonic the Hedgehog, both in English and in Turkish. The English episodes will be right here on my channel, but if you are one of my Turkish fans, click that link on the upper right corner to visit the Turkish version of my series on my friend's channel. Sonic the Hedgehog's history is one filled with many success stories, but the history is not pure white like snow. Just like it succeeded incredible feats in the past 25 years, this franchise also has many moments that led people into asking, how is this hedgehog still alive after all this? But everything has a place. In this video we will be looking at 1991 to 1998 era, which is titled as Sonic's Classic Era. The North American video game crash of 80s left the before the crash growing sector under dark clouds. Don't get mistaken, the crash happened in North America, but it had effects worldwide. Many gaming companies and console manufacturers bled deeply, even some like Atari losing their place in the industry. The $3 billion sector shrank into $100 million. Nintendo was the company that acted fast after the crisis, and by 1985, they became a titan holding more than 90% of the market with their NES. Now you might be wondering, why is this guy giving me a history lesson on gaming industry in a video about Sonic's history? Well, that's because that is exactly where our story begins, where Nintendo dominated the market, leaving other companies with less than 10% of the market, and one of those other companies was Sega. Sega's Master System was not in a promising place against Nintendo's NES, but Sega was eager to turn the tables, and they knew what mattered the most was the games they offered. For that very reason, while getting ready for the fourth console generation, they decided to abandon their previous mascot Alex Kidd in favor of a new mascot that could go head to head against the fat Italian plumber, Mario. In order to achieve that, Sega of Japan held a company-wide competition to pitch ideas for a new mascot and a brand new game idea. Being inspired by this call, one of company's character designers, Naoto Oshima, decided to come up with a character and a game idea, and after being rejected by his supervisor, he asked another company programmer, Yuji Naka, to help shape his idea into reality. While Oshima worked on the character designs, Yuji Naka took care of the programming of the game. Of course, the game couldn't have been a simple platformer. It had to be a game that showcased Sega's new console, Genesis's full power, something so fast and colorful like never seen before. And there being no save files at the time, Yuji Naka decided on the final factor. Since there were no saves, people had to play the first stages over and over every time they launched the system, meaning they would memorize the earlier stages. So the stages and gameplay had to be designed in a way that would help the players flow through the early stages faster as they played it more and more. And that is how the world's fastest hedgehog, Sonic, was created, and was eager to make history with his edge over the regular platformers of the day. While your average platformer had blocky features and slow gameplay, Sonic had slopes up and down, loop-de-loops, a flowing, fast gameplay style, and never before seen colors on consoles, and was about to dethrone Nintendo as the sole titan in the industry. On June 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog took its place on the shelves and took the gaming market by storm. Sonic and Sega Genesis have accomplished what none other could do in the previous 8 years after the crash and successfully managed to take Nintendo head on. With Sonic on the shelves, Sega also started a pretty aggressive marketing campaign. While Sonic 1 was launching, Nintendo was announcing their newest system, the SNES. When being asked about how they would compete against SNES, which had 32,768 colors, while Sega Genesis only had 512. The Sega representative asked the interviewer to follow him to their booth, showed him two monitors side by side, one with an SNES running the new Super Mario World, and the other with a Genesis plugged in running Sonic the Hedgehog, and says, which one has more colors? It's not about how many colors you have, it's about how you use them. Sonic the Hedgehog had revitalized the gaming market from Green Hill Zone's bright green and brown tones to Starlight Zone's dark but incredibly fast design. Sonic was achieving things that was never seen before. Meanwhile, the plot was pretty simple, and needless to say, the games of that era did not require anything more anyway. The games were pure gaming experiences instead of storytelling devices. An evil scientist named Dr. Ivor Robotnik turns regular animals into robots in hopes of world domination. Yep, simple as that, just like Mario's Save the Princess stories. No dialogue, no cutscenes, only pure game. Go as fast as you can, collect rings, roll down hills, achieve speeds that were unimaginable, and defeat the evil scientist. But even this simple game had two endings. In Sonic's universe, there were things called Chaos Emeralds that possessed unlimited power. In Sonic 1, there were 6 emeralds and you needed to collect all 6 of them. The means to collect these emeralds changed from game to game, but they usually required a mini-game called the Special Stage. If you did not manage to collect all 6 before finishing the game, you'd see a try again screen with Robotnik juggling all the 6 emeralds. If you collected them all, this would change into an angry Robotnik jumping over the end sign. When Sonic was storming the sector in 1991, maybe most of you weren't even alive, I sure as hell wasn't, but Sonic 1 was not going to be the last storm the Hedgehog has caused. Not even a year after Sonic 1's release, the developers of the game, Sonic Team, was having serious issues and the head programmer Yuji Naka had decided to leave Sega of Japan and join forces with Sega of America instead. This shift created two Sonic teams on two different continents. Initially, both parties worked on their version of the sequel to the Sonic 1, but eventually the American product was officially named Sonic 2, while the Japanese product is renamed to Sonic CD for the Sega CD add-on for the Genesis. While this was an issue behind the scenes, it was also reflected on the chronology of the games. While Sonic CD gets its release a year after Sonic 2, its events in the Sonic universe actually predate those in Sonic 2. But let's stick with the real-world timeline. Sonic 2 blows its sales with the wind of Sonic 1 and Sega's aggressive marketing and gets on the store shelves on 1992. Even though it does not feature much of a different story, and I repeat myself that the story was not the center of attention at the time anyway, Sonic 2 offered more than twice the zones offered in Sonic 1 and introduced first of Sonic's friends, Miles Prower, or as we all know him, Tails. Sonic 2 also ups the already great graphics of Sonic 1, becoming a visual masterpiece, and many players tend to see Sonic 2 as the greatest game of the classic era due to its graphics as well as its gameplay. The story begins in Emerald Hill this time around. Dr. Robotnik has built himself his own Death Star called the Death Egg. Sonic and his new buddy Tails jump from stage to stage to put an end to Robotnik's plan. Just like the previous game, the players have to collect Chaos Emeralds, and now there are 7 of them, which will remain consistent for the remainder of the series from now on. Another brand new addition to the series is the inclusion of Sonic's super form. Once you collect all 7 emeralds, you can transform Sonic into Super Sonic, which increases his speed, acceleration, his jump height, and he cannot get hurt from things that would normally hurt him, but he loses 1 ring per second. Not a bad exchange. This game also features one of the hardest boss fights in the whole franchise. You know, you collect rings, and as long as you have one, even if you get hit, you can grab that one again and keep going. Well, not in this one. The last boss battle does not feature any rings, and in addition to that, you get to fight 2 bosses instead of 1. The whole fight you are not allowed to get hit once, and you have to hit the boss around 20 times in a time where there are no save files, so a single mistake could send you back into the start of the game. Nightmare tier stuff. But if you manage to collect all 7 emeralds and survive the fight, Sonic destroys the Death Egg, runs out and jumps off towards the earth, transforming into Super Sonic, while descending and eventually meeting Tails, resulting in one of the most satisfying congratulations screens ever. From the most satisfying, let's move on towards the most fun-oriented. Sonic CD hit the shelves a year after for the Sega CD add-on, and while not having the most beloved stage design, it sure is the most beautiful one. With the use of CDs instead of your regular cartridges, the whole game is aesthetically breathtaking. Just watch the intro. Even after 23 years, this intro gives me goosebumps. Can you imagine watching this 23 years ago? Or maybe you already have, in which case lucky you. The moment you start the game, you are greeted with this beautiful animation and are immediately sent to the first stage, which looks just as beautiful as the intro animation, with its colors and incredible music quality thanks to moving on to the CDs. As a fun piece of trivia, Sonic CD featured two different soundtracks, one for the US and one for Japan. Even though I prefer the Japanese soundtrack, I love the boss theme in the US version. It's incredibly intimidating for some reason. I can never mention enough how moving on to the CD benefited the game. For the first time, we are actually getting more in terms of story inside the game. CD is huge, more involved story, a time travel mechanic featuring, in addition to the regular stage, a past version, a bad future version, and a good future version of the stages, more ambitious special stages, and more. Let's go one by one. Sonic CD takes place between Sonic 1 and 2 when Robotnik tethers a planetoid called Little Planet to the Earth, and Sonic gets there to stop his plans. The game introduces two well-known characters to the series, a pink hedgehog who loves Sonic by the name of Rosie the Rascal, but you might know her by her recent name, Amy Rose. And there is also Robotnik's new and possibly the greatest invention ever, a robot copy of Sonic named Metal Sonic. Metal kidnaps Amy, Robotnik uses plans to turn into robots. You need to save Amy and foil Robotnik's plans. Meanwhile, you need to collect this game's version of Chaos Emeralds, the Time Stones. One of the main mechanics, as I mentioned earlier, is the time travel. If you had one of the panels past or future written on them and manage to move fast for around 5 seconds without getting interrupted, you travel in time, featuring a kind of a different stage with totally different graphics and slight changes to its design. If you collected all the time stones and or defeated all the generators scattered in certain places in stages and then travel to the future, you get into the good future. And believe me, that makes things a lot easier since Sonic CD is a merciless game and punishes every single mistake you make with its design. Approaching the end of the classic era, 1994's Sonic 3 has had its fair share of production issues. A series that has had such a successful track record so far already had two giant issues in its first 3 years, and it is certainly not the last. Early 1994, with Sonic 3 out, we are introduced with a brand new character in such an epic way. Knuckles the Echidna, punches Sonic out of his super form, collects the emeralds he punched out of him, and traps Sonic and Tails, and he keeps trapping them constantly throughout the game. Story of the game: Eggman is trying to repair Death Egg, collect emeralds, defeat Robotnik. Wait, something feels missing? Well, isn't that correct? Half of the game is actually missing. Because Sonic Team couldn't finish the game in time, they split the game into 2 pieces and shipped the first half in February 94, while continuing to work on the other half of it. And the second half of the game gets put on the shelves in October 94 as a lock-on technology, which is the equivalent of a DLC or additional content in today's standards. When the story becomes a whole, we learn that Knuckles is the guardian of the Master Emerald, an emerald that controls the 7 Chaos Emeralds and is tricked by Robotnik to mess with Sonic while he tries to repair his Death Egg. While we spent the first half of the game, Knuckles fighting us, in the second half, when Robotnik tries to steal the Master Emerald, we team up with Knuckles to defeat Robotnik. Or maybe we defeat Robotnik while Knuckles lies down electrocuted. Aside from the story actually getting a conclusion with the second half, with the lock-on technology, you also get to use Knuckles in his own story in the stages you completed as Sonic. And don't underestimate the stages. Once you play with the abilities of Tails, who flies, and Knuckles, who glides and climbs, you will look at these stages from a whole new perspective. This is also one of the main reasons why Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 are praised a lot, even to this day. While being on top of the gaming industry in the 90s, in the years to come, Sonic will be praised a lot, but he will be slammed to the ground a lot, just as much, and rightfully so. In the next episode in the series, we will be looking at Sonic's jump to 3D and talk about the Dreamcast era. We will talk about the Adventure series, Heroes, and even mention the handheld series for the Game Boy Advance, the Sonic Advance series. I know Heroes was not on the Dreamcast, but that was the best era to put Heroes into. While this first episode was based more on technical stuff, we will be jumping to a more story-heavy era in the next one. I hope you liked this episode. This was the biggest project I have ever attempted, and it took a lot of effort, so I would appreciate any kind of feedback, praises, criticisms. Please don't be shy. If you enjoyed this, you can always support me and the series with a single hit of a like button and some comments if you have anything to share or discuss. I'd love to reply back to you guys and have a nice little discussion with you. In order to not miss the episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Take care.